everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. In the last video, we brought our 1948 8N parts tractor. Well, it's no longer a parts tractor, but that's what we call it to differentiate it from the other 48 8N we just finished. We got it in here, we evaluated everything, we stripped it down and made our parts list. Now today, we're going to actually start fixing stuff. We're going to do the back brakes, the axle seals, bearing preload, all that sort of stuff. So let's get started. We'll also be pulling off this axle trumpet to deal with this loose pin. And then once I've got everything all apart, except this will be back on, we will take the Hulk outside and power wash it all, get all the grease and grime and stuff off of it. First thing we got to try and do is figure out what the heck they've done with this. This is supposed to be the clip that holds that locks the axle nut to the axle shaft, but I'm not quite sure what they've done here. A lot of things happens to these old tractors. There we go. There's the other end of it. It looks like they've just squeezed it into the nut. That's fine. Let me go get the other one out. To get these nuts off, you need a 2-inch socket and a pretty serious impact gun. If you don't have an impact gun to use it to get it off, and you're going to do it with a bar, do it while the wheels are still on and the weight's on it, and you can lock the brakes. And that'll help you. Anyway, let's see if this comes off. Oh yeah, we're good. I really should get an impact socket. In fact, as soon as I'm done, I'm going to go write that on my list. So here's the old nut. It's pretty banged up. Next, we're going to get the brake drums off. So they'll be held on either with 2 or 4 screws. So lucky for us, these ones come out. But chances are on yours they may not. So there's a few ways to get them out if they're stubborn. First thing to try is get an adjustable wrench on your screwdriver and just lean right into it and get them freed up. Another way is to get a big punch and belt them straight on, and that'll sometimes loosen them up. You may have to use a center punch and punch them around like that to get them freed up. Sometimes you have to heat them up with the torch, but they'll usually come out because unlike a car, these tractors don't get the road salt, which is what makes everything on a car really rust and corrode together. And on top of that, if you're taking this apart because your axle seals are leaking, well, everything's pretty well oiled down, and that should have almost worked like penetrant and helped loosen up some of this stuff for you. Let's see, this is the last one. Yeah, it comes out too. So we're good there. After the fight that I had with the front axle and some of this stuff on the back of this thing, it's nice to have something that comes out easy. So the drum is off, and you can see in here, it's just laced with oil. We're going to have to do the axle seals for sure on this thing. And another problem we have, you could see, the hub is loose. I should need a big puller to get that off. So what we're going to do is, I'll show you how to fix this up. This thing has been rammed down so far that the washer from the hub going like that, the washer has eaten into it. And you can't even tighten this anymore because the washer is going to come down on top of the hub and hit the end of the axle. You'll never be able to get this tight. But I know a way that I fixed lots of them and I have had success, so I'll show you my little trick. but at least it comes off easy. You'll see here on the left side only, there's an extra return spring. That's because of the fact that the linkage crosses over from the other side, and the engineers decided it needed just a little extra return action. So that's completely normal. Sometimes you'll find them with the extra spring on both sides, but it only needs it on this side. Another thing I noticed when I took it apart, you can see the back of this hub is all chewed up. That's pretty normal. What causes that is when the splines get so worn out, it gets drawn so far down over the axle that it actually starts rubbing on the bottom of the bore of the housing. Again, when we're done with it, that will not be a problem. So I just use a standard brake spring tool to remove the spring. And then the shoes just lift off. Just like that, not much holding them on. Then we can start taking off the seals. The top and bottom ones are short little guys that screw into just screw right into the housing. And the other four go right through with a nut on the back. So when you get the last bolt off, you'll get the old seal and retainer. That is scrap. That is old, man. That is a leather seal. No wonder it leaks. Then the spider comes off. And the last thing we'll have to do is there's two bolts from the back that hold this bearing retainer on. It'll come off and the backing plate will come off. Now we've got the two bolts on the back. The bottom one is completely out. The top one's halfway out, and you just give it a smack there. That'll break the seal on everything. Then we'll take that out and pull the backing plate off. We'll pull this hub retainer off first. And when you take the backing plate off, you're going to get this cross shaft and the pedal and everything. So watch it because it's a little unwieldy. So there's our bearing retainer. The race looks good. The bearing looks good. So now we get a hold of this. The brake shaft is kind of stuck in the axle trumpet. It's coming up. There we go. Okay. Now last thing we're going to do is just use a rag here, and we can go ahead and pull the axle shaft out. Now if this was a 50 or up 8N, there would be a machine surface on here and there would be an inner grease seal there. And on those ones, the wheel bearing is actually greased with axle grease, not with the internal lube. We've got all this stuff cleaned up. It's dried off. I see all the grease and oil and stuff is gone from it. Last thing we got to finish cleaning is the brake shoes. So the brake shoes, we put them in the solvent tank and cleaned them up nicely. Now we're going to get our propane torch here and just, you can see just that little bit of blue flame off the side there. That's the last of the solvent and oil and stuff. And you can see the shoe change color as the stuff evaporates and or burns away. These weren't really soaked all that bad. I've seen them soaked a lot worse. Back when I was working and I had access to like a machine shop acid tank, I would throw the brake shoes in the acid tank overnight and that would clean them up. But I don't have that. Oh yeah, you can see it boiling up to the surface, the oil. So you just go back and forth like this for a few minutes, and next thing you know, you have it all burned off. Just don't, concentrate the heat too much in one spot. We don't want to burn the adhesive, because these are bonded shoes, not riveted. So here's what happens when you've got a loose hub. You see there what the splines look like? See what they look like on that one? From rattling and wobbling all around. So this hub is junk. And here's a good used one that we found in the barn. So we'll use that one on our tractor. I've got everything set up outside for cleaning. My original plan was that I wanted to get this trumpet off and get that loose pin fixed before I cleaned it. But we've got a real nice break in the weather today. This is the first nice day we've had here in like weeks. And in a couple of hours from now, this is very short-lived. We've got some kind of nasty cold front coming through. And there's going to be a big windstorm and all kinds of stuff. So I said, all right, I'm just going to deal with it. Play the hand I'm dealt. So we're going to get this thing cleaned up now and get it back in. So this afternoon when it's nasty out here, I can work in the garage. So what I do, how I clean these things, I spray them down with oven cleaner. And you don't have to spray the whole thing. Like spraying here where there's no grease and oil is a waste of time. But anywhere where I see oil or grease, like around here, I spray it down with oven cleaner. And then I use my power washer, which is actually in the house. I've got a power washer made of components, not a store-bought power washer. And it's in the basement and hooked into hot water. So it works pretty well. It's not really high pressure, but having the hot water helps a lot. So we're going to go ahead and spray this stuff down. We'll spray down that. We'll spray down the engine. I'm not too worried about getting the engine full up with water because as soon as it goes inside, it's coming apart. And whatever of these parts need touching up, we'll touch them up too. So that went all pretty well. We got all our stuff cleaned up. Now I'm going to get the loader and put it all away. And look, it's just beautiful out here today. We have been in like a deep freeze since the middle of January. This is literally the first day that you could come outside and do stuff without freezing. But we do have this big windstorm that's supposed to come this afternoon, and it's bringing in a cold front, and it's supposed to be a snowstorm again tonight. But at least we got our one day. The boys are enjoying themselves. So let's get this stuff put away, and I'll see you back in the shop. There we are, all set up back on stands in the shop. Now we can get that trumpet off. We've got this thing set up on 3 stands now, so it can't fall down on us. I've gone ahead and taken all the nuts off this trumpet except one until we get it jiggled free of the gasket and everything. We'll just leave that one there for now. Now, these 2 trumpets are the only thing that holds the differential into the case. So you can see that the ring gear is on that side of the pinion. So when we pull this trumpet out, we're not going to get the whole diff coming down on top of us. But if you pull this side off, be ready because the diff is going to come out with it. I would suggest that you may be wise to leave this axle in. It may help hold the diff in, although I'm not sure on that. But anyway, we're taking off this side, so we'll be safe. So you can see in there our differential. Bearings all look fine on it. There's a tiny little bit of goop in the bottom there. I'll get my scraper and get that stuff scraped out. But it's not too bad in there. Now you can see here, this is our loose pin. So we're going to have to see what we have to do about that. The nut was loose. It's like finger tight. That's really weird. So you can see here, this is a taper, and it goes in a tapered hole. And I wanted to make sure, you can see there that it is still well below the inside of the case. So if I pull it in with a nut, the nut's not going to be contacting the back of there and making it not loose. But what I do know is the hole is, I could feel it slightly egged out a little bit. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put some Loctite sealant around this taper. We're going to put it in, and then we're going to use a flat washer on the inside with more Loctite sealant, and I want to get this thing pulled good and tight and make sure it's not going to leak. We should be A-okay. There we are, one loose pin fixed. So now, as tempting as it is to just go around here with this stuff and stick the trumpet back on, we need to put a gasket. We need to put a gasket in, because the gaskets are how they shim the trumpets to set the bearing clearance, I believe. I don't think there's shims behind these bearings. I may be wrong. But anyway, there was a gasket there, so we need to put a gasket back to maintain our preload on this bearing. I went to put my gasket on and found out that it's too small, because it's a paper gasket and it has shrunk. So right now it's just soaking in a bucket of water, and that'll make it grow back to the right size and we can put it on. You also want to have a look in here. On these Ford tractors, the ring gear is actually riveted to the carrier. And if you see rivets that look like they're loose or falling out, that means you are on your path to a driveline failure. It does happen to them. The rivets will all work loose or shear and you lose the drive. But this one looks okay. Also, if some of the studs come out, when you go to put them back in, there is one that's longer than all the other ones, and it has to go in this position here because it's got the extra length, because the exhaust hanger hangs off that stud. So I've got our gasket on, and when you're putting it on, it may be a little frustrating. The studs are all equidistant apart except these two. So look for the space on the gasket where there's a little extra space in between, and that's the top. So now we'll stick our trumpet back on and everything should be good. I've got all the parts for the brakes and the axle seals all cleaned up and laid out. All of these things that are supposed to be red, by the time we come back, I gotta wait now because I've ordered some parts and I have to wait for them to come. So this stuff will all get painted. I'll paint this Hulk here, so when we come back, we've got something pretty to work on. Anyway, I guess that'll do it for now. So we've gotten this all apart. I showed you how to do that and some of the things to look for. You'll be surprised when we put it back together. If you were watching, there was a couple of key parts that were missing, gaskets and seals. No wonder the brakes were full of oil. Anyway, I'll show you those when we put it back together. Until then, I guess, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time on the Claremont Classic Garage. So long.